Poor boy's heartwarming plea for brother's milk reveals a life-changing, unexpected transformation. In the small town of Maplewood, Jake Martin was no stranger to hardship. At just 12 years old, he carried the heavy burden of taking care of his little brother Ethan and their ailing mother. With every knock on a neighbor's door, the spring sun shone brightly, an ironic contrast to the shadows that loomed over their home. Jake grasped a crumpled note, heart racing, ready to voice his desperate plea for milk, life's essential nutrient for Ethan's fragile health. Hope mingled with fear. What would they say? Jake's first stop was Mrs. Henderson's house. The kind old woman had always offered a comforting smile, but today her face twisted into an unreadable expression when he explained why he was there. "Oh dear, I wish I could help," she said, avoiding his eyes. The sting of indifference was sharper than any cold wind, making Jake's heart sink. Yet, he bravely stepped away, determined. The Johnsons' laughter buzzed from the backyard where their picnic blared joyfully while Jake discreetly approached the family. This time, he faced tight-lipped silence. They glanced at him, some even shaking their heads, and he felt the crush of shame. Why was it so hard for them to understand? How could they not feel for a boy just trying to take care of his family? As lunchtime turned into evening, Jake's energy faded along with his hope. Throbbing discomfort echoed in his belly, but nothing compared to the pang in his heart when he thought of Ethan. What would his brother do without milk? It was supposed to be a carefree spring, friends playing, flowers blooming, but instead, Jake was dreading a long night. That's when he saw Mr. Thompson, the owner of the local grocery store, through a dusty window. With his hand shivering like a leaf caught in the breeze, Jake knocked. He poured out his plea, words tumbling out like marbles. Heartwarming gratitude, love for Ethan, promises of hard work. But Mr. Thompson didn't dismiss him. Instead, he offered a job cleaning and stocking shelves. Yet the offer clawed at Jake. How could he accept help when his chest felt so tight with pride? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every carton of milk he collected, the weight of his choices weighed heavier. The whispers from the town made it clear he had become just another poor boy. An unexpected ally emerged in the form of Gerald, a former veteran who sensed the fire in Jake's determination. "You fight for what's right," he told Jake, "even when the world tells you to shrink." But just as Jake began to feel the flicker of hope, doubt slipped in. Would his mother ever feel strong again? Could he make their lives better? Standing amidst the chaos of Maplewood, Jake clenched his fists, ready to confront this storm. The battle between pride and desperation was just beginning, leaving him teetering on the edge. What was he willing to fight for, and who would join him in this quest for dignity? The answers lay ahead, waiting to be forged in the fire of his determination. The next day dawned bright and blinding, a stark contrast to the worries gnawing at Jake's heart. He woke early, the sun eager to push through the window of their cluttered living room. The remnants of yesterday's failures clung to him like a heavy cloak as he watched Ethan sleep, curled peacefully in his little bed, innocent and completely unaware of the chaos his brother faced. With a deep breath, Jake crept into the tiny kitchen. The old refrigerator hummed softly, a comforting background sound to the growing storm in his mind. He poured out a bowl of cereal, but the crunching noise felt foreign in the silence, echoing his unease. Jake knew they could barely afford the milk, let alone cereal, but he had to buy it the first where the coins he'd meticulously saved from his weekly allowances went towards something other than necessities. As he finished eating, the resolve began to harden within him. Today might be the day he took charge not just for himself, but for Ethan and their mother. He refused to let pride shackle him. With determination igniting his spirit, he decided to meet Mr. Thompson again, ready to accept help no matter how his heart might protest. The streets of Maplewood appeared different. Jake's feet were lighter, almost skipping on the pavement lined with blooming flowers, witnessing the beauty he had overlooked during his weight of worry. The chime of bells from the nearby church bells marked the hour, reminding him that he was not alone. There were others in this small town struggling. As he reached the grocery store, the familiar scent of fresh bread wafted out, mingling with the smell of produce. Mr. Thompson was busy stocking shelves, his gentle demeanor still warm from yesterday's encounter. As Jake approached, the older man looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Jake. Nice to see you again, my boy. Have you given any thought to my offer?" Jake swallowed hard, the nervousness rising once more. "Yes, sir. I want to help. I mean, if you're still interested?" Mr. Thompson's gaze softened. "It takes courage to come back, Jake. Are you ready to put in some hard work?" "Yes. I'll do whatever it takes," Jake replied, his voice steady but his insides churning. "All right then, let us get started," Mr. Thompson smiled, leading him into the stockroom, where shelves overflowed with items, waiting for young hands to organize them. With each box he lifted, Jake felt a growing fire inside him. It was more than just the work, it was purpose. The echoes of the townsfolk's whispers faded with each task completed and each carton stacked into perfect rows. Finally, he had become someone who was making a change by reclaiming his pride. As days turned into weeks, the call of the community began to soften. People started noticing Jake not just for his tough reality, but for his effort and grit. They saw him shoulder burdens much heavier than himself, and some began to offer help, food donations, smiles of encouragement, and occasionally, even a warmer welcome. The arrival of a letter shocked him one afternoon. It was from Mrs. Henderson. She wrote of the family's compassion for him and his brother. "This community thrives on love and support," she expressed. "It's time we open our hearts to you and Ethan." Relief washed over him, but so did confusion. Was the tide truly turning? What did this mean for their family's future? Jake's heart raced with hope and uncertainty. As he stared at the letter, he thought of his mother. They'd been struggling so long. Could a simple letter change everything for them? Would she finally feel the warmth of support from others? He knew one thing: he would find out just how much their world could transform when he held that letter in his hand. But with change came fear. What if everything crumbled again? Jake stood at the threshold of possibility, heart pounding. The next step loomed ahead, tangled in hope and worry, just as shadows and sunlight danced together outside his kitchen window. Would he have the courage to embrace what came next? Jake clutched the letter tightly, feeling the crisp paper pressing into his palm like an anchor, both grounding and lifting him. He fought the urge to read it again. Instead, he paced the cramped kitchen, his mind whirling with thoughts. What if Mrs. Henderson was right? What if reaching out meant not just help, but true community? The idea felt foreign yet intoxicating at the same time. Ethan stirred, the soft rustle of sheets cutting through Jake's reverie. He turned to see his little brother yawning, eyes squinting in the light. A wave of warmth surged through him. Ethan's innocence was a beacon, reminding Jake why he was pushing for change. The thought of crafting a stable life for them brought determination roaring back. "Good morning," Jake said, forcing brightness into his voice. "Did you get cereal?" Ethan rubbed his eyes, a sleepy smile spreading across his face. Jake chuckled, momentarily relieved by his brother's cheer. "We might have a little left. We'll see after breakfast." He ruffled Ethan's hair, then set about making another bowl, their small habits anchoring him in this moment. As they ate, Ethan chattered about his friends at school, unburdened and free. Jake listened, heart swelling with pride for the joy he could still give his brother. "Do you think you could help me today?" he asked suddenly, needing Ethan's small hands on deck. "With what?" Ethan's eyes lit up, curiosity piqued. "I want to help out at Mr. Thompson's store." The words came quick. "I'll be working there, and maybe you can come help me organize some things." "He'd love to see you." Ethan's face broke into a wide grin. "Really? I get to go?" "Absolutely. Maybe we can even bring home a treat just like the ones he has." "I want a donut!" Ethan exclaimed, bouncing in his chair, his laughter filling the tiny kitchen like sunlight. After breakfast, they made their way to the grocery store. The familiar bakery scents wrapped around them, filling Jake with a sense of belonging. He knew Mr. Thompson would be pleased to see both of them. "Jake! There you are!" Mr. Thompson's booming voice broke through the calming hum of the store. "And you brought your little helper?" "Yeah. Can I help?" "I want to be just like Jake," Ethan said, pride gleaming in his eyes. Mr. Thompson chuckled warmly, kneeling to meet Ethan's gaze. "Of course. You can help me with the flowers. We need someone small to arrange them, and I bet you have the best sense of style." Ethan's face lit up as he took the tiny flowers from Mr. Thompson's hands eagerly. Jake couldn't help but smile as he watched Ethan deeply immerse himself in arranging the simple blooms, each one carefully placed as if it were a drop-down in a gallery. Jake settled back into a rhythm of stacking boxes and organizing aisles, occasionally stealing glances at Ethan. His brother was tiny and fragile, but today he looked like a giant among the petals. It was a reminder of what they were working toward. With each box lifted, Jake felt lighter not just from the work done, but from the threads of community he was slowly weaving into their lives. Yet, as they worked side by side, a flicker of doubt fluttered in Jake's mind. Would it be enough? Could he really provide for Ethan, for their mother in a way that lifted them out of the dark cloud that had lingered for so long? Mr. Thompson interrupted his thoughts. "Jake, your hard work is something special. It doesn't go unnoticed." Jake nodded, but uncertainty still gnawed at him. The letter from Mrs. Henderson lingered in his thoughts like a soft whisper. "Do you really think people can change things?" he asked. Mr. Thompson leaned against the shelving and sighed. "Son, community is just a word until you give it life. You're doing just that with every action, every smile." As Jake digested the deep words, something shifted within him, a hope that began to swell. But just then, the bell above the store entrance jingled, and a woman rushed in, breathless and frantic. "Help! Please, someone needs help outside." Jake froze, heart racing. What had just entered their moment of peace? With urgency, he exchanged a worried glance with Mr. Thompson, who was already moving toward the door. Jake followed, every heartbeat echoing with fear and curiosity about what awaited them outside. Would they be ready for whatever challenge came their way? Would it change everything once again? Jake's feet moved almost of their own accord, driven by instinct as Mr. Thompson opened the door. The sunlight felt harsh compared to the warm, inviting atmosphere of the store. Outside, chaos reigned. A crowd had gathered in a small circle, murmurs of concern echoing around them. "What happened?" Jake gasped, his breath catching in his throat as he stepped forward, eyes scanning for the source of commotion. A man lay sprawled on the pavement, clutching his side. A woman knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed the cloth against a growing stain of red. Panic gripped Jake's heart. His instinct screamed that this was bad, very bad. "Sir, can you hear me?" The woman's voice wavered, filled with desperation. Without thinking, Jake pushed through the growing mass of onlookers. He reached the scene just as Mr. Thompson knelt beside the man. "We need to call an ambulance," Mr. Thompson said, his voice strong but softly firm. Jake's mind whirled. He glanced back to where Ethan stood, wide-eyed and uncertain. "Stay here, buddy," he called, though he longed to keep Ethan right beside him. "Jake." Mr. Thompson's voice broke through the noise. "Help me check if he's conscious." Jake's hands trembled as he bent closer. "Sir? Can you hear me?" The man's eyes fluttered open briefly, pain evident. He nodded slightly, but that faint sign of life pushed Jake to take charge. He focused on gathering information. "What happened?" I was just trying to get home." The man's words came in choked bursts, labored and difficult. "Let us not move him," Mr. Thompson cautioned, pulling out his phone. "Help is on the way. Just hold on, all right?" In that moment, Jake felt an empathetic wave wash over him. This man was someone's brother, someone's son, just like Ethan was his. All the worry about providing for his family faded for a second, replaced with a fierce determination to help, Looking around, Jake took charge. Someone grab water. We need to keep him comfortable. Ethan, his voice caught. He turned to find Ethan had stepped forward, fear washing over his face. It's okay, buddy, Jake said, kneeling down slightly to reassure him. Just stay back and watch. Ethan, visibly torn, started to protest. But trust me, please, Jake said gently. I'll be right here. Jake turned back to assist Mr. Thompson, who was now calmly talking to the man, urging him to focus on his voice. They worked seamlessly as murmurs of the crowd faded into the background, leaving only the rhythm of their actions and the rush of impending help. Minutes felt like hours. The distant noise of sirens punctured through, bringing a promise of safety. Jake dared to look back at Ethan, who watched, white-knuckled, from a distance. There was fear in his brother's eyes, but something else lingered, to a flicker of pride, perhaps. Suddenly, the man gasped sharply as paramedics rushed to his side. His eyes darted closed as if surrendering to the moment. The urgency heightened, and fear crept back into Jake's heart. As the paramedics began their work, Jake stepped back, breathing heavily. The reality of the situation washed over him like cold water. What had started as a simple day had transformed into a life-altering event. Amid the chaos, the weight of the letter emerged in Jake's mind again. That possibility of change, of community, it all felt threaded through this moment. Jake. Ethan's voice cut through his thoughts, pleading and small. Jake turned. His brother was still standing there, looking up at him. Are we okay? Ethan asked, those big eyes searching for comfort. Jake knelt before him, offering a shaky smile. Yeah, we're going to be okay. The sound of sirens swelled, wrapping around them. But deep down, Jake felt that this was only the beginning. As the first responders worked, he realized change could come from unexpected corners, even in the face of fear. Jake, what if someone needs us again? Ethan's voice wavered, still searching. I'll make sure we're ready, Jake promised. But as he said that, the question hung in the air. What kind of change was waiting for them on the other side of this moment? And more importantly, how would they be shaped by it? Jake stood up, still feeling the weight of the moment. The paramedics had now taken control, and for a heartbeat, he felt useless, like a spectator in what was supposed to be a dangerous play. He looked at Ethan, whose eyes were wide, glistening with unshed tears. Do you want to go back to the store? Jake asked, hoping to lighten the mood a little. The chaos was settling, but he could still feel the tension in the air. Ethan shook his head. No, I want to stay here. His voice was a mix of stubbornness and fear. Okay, but I need you to be brave, Jake said, his voice firm yet soft. Can you do that? Ethan straightened up a bit, determination on his face. Yeah. Jake ruffled his brother's hair, hoping to reassure him. He scanned the crowd, his heart heavy with realization. Each face was filled with concern, empathy, and a bit of helplessness. Beneath the buzzing hive of conversations, he sensed something uniting them all, a shared humanity. As the paramedics moved the injured man onto a stretcher, Jake caught sight of the woman who had first rushed to help. Her forehead glistened with sweat, her hands still stained with his blood. She looked dazed yet relieved, watching as the pros took over. Jake felt an intense swell of admiration for her. Hey! He waved her over when she turned, glancing his way. You did great. Her face twisted slightly, surprise blending with modesty. I just did what anyone would do. Not everyone would have the courage to act, Jake insisted, stepping closer. You saved his life. The woman seemed to breathe in his words, absorbing his gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, blinking back tears. Ethan looked up at Jake, curiosity sparking in his eyes. Do you think she's going to be okay? I do, Jake said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. We're all going to be okay, buddy. As the crowd began to thin out, drawn back by the everyday rhythms of life, Jake felt the heaviness lingering in the air. He had experienced fear before, but this was different. This felt bigger, a slice of reality that stretched beyond the pavement where the man had fallen. Hey, Ethan said, breaking through Jake's thoughts. What if we help people? Like her? The simplicity of his brother's words resonated deeply with Jake. What do you mean? Maybe we should start helping. If someone needs us, we can be there, just like her. Jake's heartbeat quickened, the idea bursting forth with vigor. You know, that's a great thought. We can start something right here. Really? You think they'll let us? Why not? Jake said, eyes sparkling with newfound hope. We can talk to Mr. Thompson. He has been in the community for years. He'll know how. Let us do it. Can we? Ethan jumped a little, infectious excitement replacing his earlier fear. Definitely. Let us find him. They turned, and Jake felt a surge of energy propelling them forward. The world around them was changing, and Jake realized he no longer wanted to be a passive participant. As they made their way back toward the store, the sun began to dip behind the buildings, casting long shadows that intertwined with the fading murmurs of the crowd. Jake glanced at Ethan, who was now talking animatedly about all the things they could do. It felt good. But under that joy, another question lurked in Jake's mind. What if the weight of their promise became a burden? What if they stumbled along the way? As if sensing his thoughts, Ethan paused. Jake? You think we're really ready for this? More than ready, Jake replied, yet doubt began to gnaw at his heart. Could they truly be the change they wanted to see? As they approached the store, a sense of purpose shone in Ethan's eyes. They were stepping onto a path that could change everything. But with every step forward, Jake couldn't help but wonder if they were ready for the transformation that awaited them, and what cost to their innocence it might bring. Walking into the store, Jake felt the energy shift. The wheeled carts clanked against the tiled floor, and the familiar scent of pine-scented cleaner mixed with the crispness of fresh produce filled the air. But today, this sanctuary of snacks and necessities felt different, like a canvas waiting for vibrant news strokes. Ethan's enthusiasm was palpable as he looked around, his eyes flicking from aisle to aisle. Look, Jake! They have those granola bars we like. He dashed toward the snack aisle, clearly buoyed by the idea of helping others. Hey, slow down! Jake called, chuckling despite the gravity of their earlier conversation. Speeding ahead, Ethan was already pulling boxes off the shelf. Jake followed, but a gnawing worry prickled at the back of his mind. What if they weren't enough? The thought sat heavy on Jake's chest, but as Ethan stacked the boxes in front of him and turned to flash an infectious grin, his doubts faded into background noise. All right, let us get a few things. We'll need supplies, right? Jake said, taking stock of their budding mission. Ethan nodded with a fierce determination that reminded Jake of their mother. Yeah. We can get some first aid kits too. Like the one the paramedics used. Jake couldn't help but feel a swell of pride wash over him. That's a great idea. Let us make a list of all the essentials. Ethan spun around in excitement. They began to pile necessities into their cart. They chatted about everything, what they'd call their initiative, how they might hold workshops, or even coordinate with others in the neighborhood. The clarity of their shared vision painted over Jake's doubts, making space for hope to flourish. Jake! Ethan exclaimed suddenly, interrupting the flow of their discussion. Look! He pointed toward the display of milk bottles in the dairy aisle. What if we started a food drive too? We could collect milk and other things for families that need help. Jake felt a ping in his heart. They could help provide for families struggling to put food on the table. This was bigger than just the two of them. That could make a huge difference, We could really reach out to a lot of people. Ethan grinned from ear to ear, the excitement spilling over. We have to tell Mr. Thompson about this next. The thought of Mr. Thompson's sturdy presence encouraged Jake. He was always ready to lend a hand, a community pillar. With every item they added to the cart, their small dreams felt more tangible, each one weaving them deeper into the fabric of their neighborhood. Just as they rounded the corner toward the checkout, Jake heard raised voices coming from the far end of the store. He turned to see an older man and a woman arguing near the bakery section. What's going on? Ethan asked, gripping the edge of the cart. I don't know. Jake narrowed his eyes, the sense of unease creeping back. Maybe we should check it out. Together, they moved closer, curiosity pushing them forward. The raised voices grew clearer, filled with desperation and anger. Jake's heart raced as he exchanged glances with Ethan, who mirrored his concern. But there was no turning back now. They had already committed to being there for others, to standing up for what was right. As they approached the gathering crowd, Jake felt a strange mix of fear and resolve welling up within him. "What if this is our first test?" he murmured under his breath, glancing at Ethan, who nodded solemnly. Jake didn't know what to expect. But something told him that stepping into this moment could shape everything they had set out to create. And in that instant, he realized the weight of their choice to embrace the uncertain, to step into the chaos not as bystanders, but as parts of a solution. "Let us do this," Jake said, knowing they were on the brink of something that could change lives, starting with their own. But as the tension in the air thickened, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of their journey into a world they couldn't fully grasp yet. As Jake and Ethan approached the commotion, the voices surged and ebbed like waves crashing against the shore. The older man was gesticulating wildly, his face flushed with frustration. The woman, arms crossed and brows furrowed, shot back with her own harsh words. Jake's heart pounded. He could almost feel the weight of the emotion swaying the crowd, a collective breath held in anticipation. Ethan pulled closer to him, a small tremor in his voice. "Do you think they need help?" Jake took a deep breath. "Maybe," he replied, feeling the weight of his decision. They weren't just there to shop, they were there to lend a hand, even if it made him a little uneasy. Just then, the man's voice broke through the noise. "It's not fair. You can't just take his only milk." He thrust a shaking finger toward a boy standing nearby. The boy, maybe Ethan's age, looked on the verge of tears, clutching a nearly empty bottle of milk. The woman's tone softened but remained firm. "We can't give him milk if we don't have enough to feed our own family." The crowd murmured, glancing entreatedly between the two. Jake's stomach twisted. Was the argument about survival? Hunger? He could almost feel the boy's sorrow, a ripple of shared pain in the air. "Ethan," Jake whispered urgently. "We have to do something." Ethan's eyes widened as he grasped the gravity of the moment. "What can we do?" Quickly, they exchanged glances, understanding passing between them like a spark igniting a flame. "We can share what we brought. We don't need to save it just for ourselves." Ethan nodded, determination shining in his eyes. Without another word, they pushed their cart forward, weaving through the crowd. "Excuse me," Jake called out as they approached the shouting adults. Their heads turned, and silence fell, all eyes landing on the brothers. The older man blinked in surprise. "What do you want?" "We heard what you were saying," Jake began, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. "And we want to help." He gestured toward the cart overflowing with supplies. "We have extra milk and granola bars. Please take them." Outrage flickered in the woman's expression, but before she could respond, the boy stepped forward, letting out a small, hopeful breath. "You'd really do that?" Ethan knelt and smiled, his genuine kindness radiating warmth. "Of course. We can share. No one should go hungry." The crowd was still, absorbing the offer. Jake's heartbeat thumped loudly in his ears, but as he watched the boy's face brighten, realization hit him. They were living their mission right then, and there a crack formed in the tension as the older man's angry facade faltered, replaced by a surge of gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. We really need this." Jake felt a rush of emotion swell within him as he watched Ethan hand over the boxes, each one a piece of hope they were sharing. The confrontation began to dissolve as the woman's features softened. "It's about survival," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "We do what we must." The boy clutched the bottle of milk, tears of relief glimmering in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered again, his small voice breaking Jake's heart anew. They had crossed a line from simply observing to truly participating. They were cultivating a spirit of community that Jake had always believed in but never fully experienced until now. As they turned to leave, feeling the warmth of connection forming within the crowd, Jake felt a new surge of resolve. This was just the beginning. If they could help here, they could do so much more. But before they could retreat, the woman approached again, her eyes scanning their cart. I know it's just a start, but there's more we could do. Jake's mind buzzed with possibilities. What do you mean? Ethan asked, his enthusiasm bubbling again. Let us talk, she said, scheduling defiance and a flicker of hope in a singular moment that spoke of change. Jake and Ethan exchanged a look, a shiver of excitement racing down their spines. What more could come from this? Little did they know, this encounter would lead to something greater than they ever anticipated. A clutch of eager faces surrounded Jake and Ethan, curiosity flaring and shifting like dry leaves caught in a breeze. The atmosphere crackled with tension but also a flicker of something new possibility. I know a place we can gather more supplies, the woman continued, her voice stronger now, infused with a sense of direction. If we can source just a little more, we could help those who are struggling. She paused, searching their faces. Together. The brothers exchanged glances again, a silent conversation that spoke volumes. What started as an awkward encounter had transformed into a gateway of hope, and that undeniable connection one of shared experience and compassion seemed to pull them closer to this woman and her cause. What do we need? Jake asked, feeling the spark in the air draw him in. Food, clothing, anything, she replied, urgency lacing her words. I have a small group that helps families like the one you just saw. They usually don't have enough to eat or even enough clothes. I know it might seem scary, but it's important. Ethan's eyes shone with excitement. We can do it, he declared, pumping his fist. Yeah, we can, Jake said, bolstered by his brother's enthusiasm. They weren't just children shopping anymore, they were agents of change. Meet me outside in an hour, the woman instructed. I'll talk to the others. We can distribute whatever we gather this afternoon. Jake nodded, feeling a rush of determination flood through him. As the woman turned to leave, the boy lingering nearby caught his gaze. Will you really help? The boy asked, his expression sincere, almost pleading. Absolutely, Ethan promised, crouching down to meet him at eye level. You're not alone anymore. We're all in this together. The boy's face brightened, courage replacing his earlier fears. Thank you? He whispered, and just like that, with those two words, Jake felt another layer of resolve building within him. It wasn't just about the supplies. It was about hope and reclaiming dignity in a hopeless situation. As they maneuvered through the crowd, pushing their cart, Jake thought of everything they'd experienced together. Neighborhoods where laughter echoed in the streets, fences shared by friendly neighbors, barbecues spilling over the weekends. All those scenes seemed distant now, yet so crucial. Building connections and trust was powerful, more powerful than he had ever truly understood. Do you think it's possible? Ethan asked, his voice breaking into Jake's thoughts. To really change something? Definitely, Jake said, feeling a swell of belief in them both. It starts with us. Just like what we did today. We can help a lot more people. The hour passed too swiftly. They hurriedly gathered more supplies, extra granola bars, bottled water, worn shoes, and a few jackets they had once outgrown. Each item was a piece of their intent, a link in a chain of kindness they could help forge. When they stepped outside, the sun danced in the sky, rejecting the shadows that threatened to loom over the day. They saw the woman with a small crowd, voices buzzing with hope and yearning. The air was thick with energy, the kind that comes before something extraordinary happens. As they approached, the woman held up her hands, drawing together the attention of the crowd. Everyone, these boys are joining us in our mission to help families in need. Cheers erupted around them, echoing their shared enthusiasm. Jake's heart raced. This was not just simple charity. This was building community, fostering connection. And just as the moment found its rhythm, a voice cut through, sharp and clear. What do you think you can really do? Heads turned, eyes narrowed, and uncertainty flared once more, the tension in the air thickening. Jake took a breath. It was now or never. Would they stand together, or would fear hold them back? The potential of their journey hung in the balance, waiting to be unveiled. What would happen next? Jake felt his pulse quicken as he faced the crowd. The voice that had challenged them belonged to a girl, slightly older than he was, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to cut right through him. Her defiance hung thick in the air, a challenge he couldn't ignore. "Who are you?" she asked, her tone laced with skepticism. The crowd's murmurs grew, rippling with doubt and curiosity. It was clear she wasn't just asking who they were, she wanted to know their purpose. Ethan, sensing his brother's unease, stepped forward. "We're here to help. We just want to bring what we can to the families who need it." Jake watched the girl's expression soften slightly, but the glint of disbelief remained. She leaned forward, her arms crossed defiantly. "How can you even understand? You're just kids. Do you really think you can change anything? What do you know about hunger or struggle?" A lump formed in Jake's throat, the emotions swirling inside him: fear, determination, and finally clarity. He felt the warmth of the sun on his back, igniting his spirit. "I may not fully understand it," he said, his voice strong despite the tremor, "but I do know that everyone deserves help. If we can gather enough supplies, we can give people something to hold on to. Hope." The girl studied him, uncertainty flickering across her face, and the crowd paused, waiting for her reaction. "What if we fail?" Another voice piped up from the back, an apprehensive tone following the question. "What if no one donates? What if this means nothing?" Jake scanned the crowd, absorbing the mix of emotions: the fear, the hope, and the yearning for connection. "It's true we might fail," he admitted, "but it's worse to do nothing. Maybe even one family feels like they're not alone. Isn't that worth trying?" A silence settled over the group as they mulled over his words. Then, slowly, the murmurs began again, but this time they were more encouraging. Ethan chimed in, "We have each other. We can do this together." Seeing the shift, the girl's tough exterior cracked a little more. "Okay," she said carefully, "if you want people to trust you, you'll have to prove it. Let us see what you can do." "I promise we won't let you down," Jake replied, excitement bubbling inside him. The murmurs transformed into action. People began to step forward, some already rummaging through bags, ready to contribute what they could. A young mother held out a sack of rice, her eyes bright with determination. Someone else handed over a worn and small stuffed bear, a treasure once cherished. In minutes, items piled up, a tangible manifestation of hope. Jake felt his heart swell at the sight. It wasn't just food or clothing, they were pieces of people's hearts, stories of loss and resilience laid bare before him. As the collection grew, the atmosphere shifted from skepticism to solidarity. The initial tension dissipated, replaced by the rush of collective purpose. "Let us get this to the families who need it," Jake said, leading the charge. Together, with eager hands, they loaded the supplies into a rickety van brought by the woman who had first gathered them. The boys climbed in among the others. Jake looked at Ethan, his brother's face radiant with joy. "Can you believe this is happening?" "Just wait until we see them smile," Ethan said, determination shining in his eyes. As they drove off towards the unknown, an idea sparked in Jake's mind. He turned back towards the girl who had doubted them, uncertainty still twitching at the corners of her mouth. "Will you join us? You can help us lead." She looked surprised but then nodded, a mix of admiration and determination on her face. "Okay, I'm in." As they drove further away from their old lives, the thrill of possibility flooded their hearts. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Then a sudden thought knocked the breath out of him. What if the act of giving could transform their community in ways he couldn't yet see? The road stretched ahead, inviting and uncertain, leaving Jake wondering what else was waiting around the next corner. Would they truly be able to change lives, or would they find their own transformed in the process? The answer loomed like a shadow, tantalizingly close yet just out of reach. Jake leaned against the stack of boxes, heart racing as the energy buzzed around him. The sun hung low in the Maplewood sky, painting the community center in warm shades of gold. Today was the day they would see the fruits of their efforts, and the growing crowd before him filled him with a strange mix of anxiety and pride. His brother Ethan stood beside him, practically bouncing with excitement. "Are you ready, Jake? Today's the day." We're actually doing this. Jake nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting in a smile. Yay. We're ready. As people began streaming into the center, warm smiles and excited chatter filled the air. Each one represented hope, a shared mission, and the community's power. Jake caught sight of the girl from the store, her earlier skepticism replaced by a supportive determination. Her name was Sarah, and she now moved among the crowd, encouraging others to help. With each person who arrived, Jake felt a weight lift. They set up tables piled high with food, clothing, and other supplies, the tangible results of many hands coming together. A man stood on a makeshift stage, rallying the crowd and explaining their initiative. We're here to help families in need, to show them they're not alone. He called out, his voice booming. The crowd cheered, a wave of connection washing over them. Jake's heart swelled as he watched their community band together, witnessing the very change he had dreamed of, the very change the letter from Mrs. Henderson had hinted at. Jake's thoughts drifted back to how far he and Ethan had come. Just weeks ago, they stood alone against the shadows that loomed over their home. Now they were leading others, sharing hope and warmth. At that moment, a small voice piped up nearby. A girl, no older than Ethan, approached them shyly, clutching a worn teddy bear, her eyes wide with reverence. My mom said I could give this away. I hope it helps. Jake knelt down beside her, his heart aching at her kindness. It will help more than you know, he assured her, gently taking the bear and placing it on the table. He saw Ethan watching, his brother's gaze filled with admiration. I wish I had 5 more like you, Jake said, his voice heartfelt and warm. The girl beamed, and the connection they shared lit a spark in Jake. This was what it was all about, compassion woven into the fabric of their lives. As the day rolled on, families began receiving supplies, their faces lighting up as they found essentials they desperately needed. Laughter and gratitude filled the air, a symphony of hope playing its sweetest melody. The sense of purpose coursed through Jake as he moved from person to person, inspired by the resilience and love surrounding him. Suddenly, he spotted Mr. Thompson weaving through the crowd, a proud smile gracing his face. He approached Jake, clapping a hand on his shoulder. You did good, kid. You and your brother have stirred something beautiful here. Jake's chest swelled with pride at the acknowledgement. We couldn't have done it without everyone's help, he replied, glancing at Ethan, who was busy organizing a stack of cans. It felt surreal. Who would have guessed 2 boys would inspire such change? As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over the center, Jake felt tears prick his eyes at the sight of the community coming together. All the fear, doubt, and hardship they had faced were melting away in the glow of unity. Hey, buddy, Jake knelt next to Ethan, who turned to him with bright, curious eyes. I think we really did it. We changed something today. Ethan beamed, the joy radiating from him pure and infectious. We helped people, Jake. And we made new friends. At that moment, Jake recognized a shift in himself. He wasn't just the caretaker anymore. He was part of something bigger, part of a community that thrived on hope. Yes, we did, Jake said, feeling the weight of years of struggle lift off his shoulders. And this is just the beginning. As the twilight settled over Maplewood, a crowd gathered to share stories, laughter, and dreams for the future. Jake realized life wouldn't be without challenges. But surrounded by love and support, they could weather any storm together. And with that warmth, he understood, life had changed, and so had he. This was a chance to create a ripple effect for future generations. As he looked at Ethan's radiant smile and the community bursting with hope around him, he knew he wouldn't trade this feeling for anything. It was time to evolve. This is how families thrive. This is how communities grow. When those people leave this place today, they won't just take supplies. They'll carry forward the spirit of togetherness, something to hold on to when times get tough. Jake felt a new promise form on his tongue, and as families departed, he whispered, "We have to keep this going. We will make our town a better place." Ethan nodded vigorously, eyes sparkling with a blend of determination and excitement. And as the sun set on Maplewood, Jake Martin felt reborn, ready to lead, ready to fight, ready to embrace the change. Make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Drop a comment about your feelings and reactions to this inspiring ending. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Join this journey of hope and connection today. You need to show your support.